The guard's voice cut through the darkness like a blade. Draven didn't flinch. In the suffocating heat of the cell, his skin was slick with sweat, every breath dragging shallow through cracked ribs. The silhouette in the doorway was massive, blotting out the pale light from the corridor beyond. "That's unusual for a soft blood," the guard muttered, stepping inside. Draven lay strapped to a cold metal slab, his torso a latticework of fresh wounds. Each inhale lanced pain through his body, but he kept his eyes half-closed, his expression unreadable. The guard leaned close, breath sour. "You know what happens if you catch her eye? The war chief will break what's left of you." Draven's lips twitched faintly. "Then let her break me properly." The guard's laughter bounced off the stone walls before the heavy door slammed shut, plunging him back into darkness. He returned to counting his breaths, each one a small act of defiance. 3 weeks earlier, they'd thrown him into a communal cell with 7 other humans. Most were already shattered, eyes vacant. Only one younger man still had fight in him, though the guards dragged him away nightly. On the 5th night, he didn't return. Instead, they hurled in a bleeding, half-conscious stranger. The others shrank back, knowing that helping the dying meant sharing their fate. An old prisoner hissed from the shadows, "Don't. They're watching." Draven ignored him. He tore strips from his shirt, binding the man's wounds with steady, practiced hands. The door banged open. 3 guards stepped in, their azure armor glinting under the dim light. "Playing healer, soft blood," the lead one sneered. Draven kept working. "Bring them both," the guard ordered. They dragged Draven into a room that smelled of antiseptic and rust, once a medical bay, now a chamber of calculated cruelty. Instruments lay neatly arranged, each one a promise of pain. "Here's the game," the guard said, lifting a slender metal rod. "Every time you scream, we cut him. Every time you beg, we break something else. If you pass out, we wake you." Draven met the man's eyes. "And if I don't? Then we get creative." And they did. For hours that bled into days, they dismantled him, breaking bones, flaying skin, drowning him just short of death. Through it all, Draven stayed silent. He'd learned something in that room: pain was not the same as suffering. The body screamed, but the mind could choose not to listen. The injured man lived because Draven never made a sound. By the 7th day, the guards brought a new victim. "We're starting again," they said. Draven looked at the terrified newcomer and murmured the only words he'd spoken in days: "Then you'll need sharper tools." They broke his ribs one by one. The 4th punctured his lung. They left it that way, curious to see how long he could breathe. That was when the whispers began. Rumors of a human who wouldn't break. And somewhere above the prison, the red-skinned war chief, Serenia, heard them. She stood on her floating platform, silver braids snapping in the desert wind. Below her, the arena yawned like a wound in the earth. Blood-stained sand waited for the day's trials. Her gaze drifted over the newest captives, pathetic, fearful creatures. All except one. He wasn't looking at the stands or the guards. He stared at the ground with a stillness that spoke not of surrender, but of waiting. For the first time in years, Serenia felt curiosity. "Bring him to my arena tomorrow," she ordered. The next day, the guards dragged Draven into the burning sunlight. His body left a red smear across the sand. Serenia circled him once, twice, then drove her heel into his exposed ribs. The sharp crack echoed. The crowd leaned forward, hungry for the scream. Instead, he exhaled, voice rough. "Thank you." For a heartbeat, Serenia froze. Then her eyes narrowed, and something dangerous settled behind them. When Draven woke, the arena was gone. In its place was the low ceiling of the barracks, a sour smell of sweat and damp stone filling his nose. He'd been dumped in a shadowed corner like discarded trash. No one had bound his wounds. No one had checked if he still breathed. The other prisoners kept their distance. Serenia had touched him, kicked him, but differently, and that made him either blessed or cursed. No one wanted to find out which. He shifted upright with a hiss, testing his ribs. The agony was still there, but something had changed. Her heel had knocked one bone back into place. It still hurt to breathe, but the stabbing edge had dulled. He almost laughed at the absurdity. Her act meant to humiliate him had made him stronger. The barracks were carved into the rock beneath the arena, lit by clusters of bioluminescent fungi that washed everything in green light. Humans huddled together by the water trough. Aliens of different species sat in wary groups. No one spoke to him. Time passed without measure until the door opened. She stood there, tall, red-skinned, silver-braided, without guards or attendants. The shaft of light from the corridor cut across her, casting her face into hard lines. A voice from outside called, just loud enough for all to hear. "You sure he's not contagious, Chief? Mercy spreads quick in here." Another guard laughed, ugly and sharp. If Serenia heard, she gave no sign. But her hand hovered close to the blade on her hip, and Draven caught the flicker of tension in her shoulders. She stepped inside. Prisoners flattened themselves against the walls as if her presence might burn them. Draven stayed still, head bowed. He could feel her watching him. Without a word, she knelt and set something on the ground beside him, a clean strip of cloth. Then she left, the door closing behind her, leaving only the fungal glow and the murmurs of the others. Draven turned the cloth over in his hands. It was soft, clean, precious in this place. He didn't use it on his wounds. Instead, he tied it around his wrist. A token. A question.
3 nights later, she returned. This time, she carried a small metal cup. The water inside was clear, clean, catching the green light in ripples. "Drink," she said. He met her gaze. "Why?" "I don't know." The word surprised him, though her face gave nothing away. Slowly, he took the cup. His fingers brushed hers, and for the briefest moment, her eyes softened. When he'd finished, she took the cup back. Her fingertips traced his jaw, lightly, almost curiously. "Not afraid of me?" she asked. "If I say yes, will you stop?" A flicker passed through her gaze, surprise, maybe amusement. She asked about his ribs. "Better," he said simply. "Thank you." The next time she came, it was daylight, and she didn't come alone. 2 guards flanked her in the doorway. The entire barracks fell silent. "You will come with me," she said. It wasn't a question. Draven rose without protest. The guards moved to restrain him, but she stopped them with a raised hand. "He will not run." They walked through winding corridors until they reached a small, clean chamber. Medical supplies lined the walls. "Sit," Serenia said. He obeyed, watching as she selected bandages and ointment with practiced hands. "Why?" he asked again. "Because I want to see you fight, not die of infection." She worked in silence, cleaning the angry wounds along his ribs. Her touch was cool, impersonal, yet carried a strange care. "You're not what I expected," she murmured at last. "What did you expect?" "Fear. Fear. Hatred. Gratitude." She paused. "I'm afraid," he admitted, "but not of you." Her hands stilled for a moment before resuming their work. When she was finished, she handed him a clean shirt, plain, but whole. 3 days from now, you will fight. Rest. Heal. Be ready." The guards returned to escort him back. Every prisoner's eyes followed him, their expressions shifting from fear to suspicion. He was marked now, publicly. Serenia came again the next day. And the day after. Sometimes with food, sometimes only with a question. The other humans called him Chief's pet when they thought he couldn't hear. He ignored them. He was healing. Breathing. Surviving. And sometimes, when she left, he caught himself waiting for the sound of the door again. The day of the selection burned bright and merciless over the arena. The prisoners were herded from the barracks into the holding pens, their bare feet scraping across the hot stone. Draven's ribs ached with each breath, but he walked without assistance. Serenia had not visited in 3 days, and though he told himself it meant nothing, the space her absence left felt larger than he wanted to admit. The air in the pens stank of sweat, fear, and anticipation. Guards paced between the cages, idly tapping their shock sticks against the bars, sometimes delivering a cruel jolt for no reason other than amusement. Above, the crowd was already gathering, their distant roar a living thing. 10 trials. 10 deaths, one guard announced loudly, the words rolling over the murmuring prisoners. Then his lipless mouth twisted. Maybe 11, if we're lucky. One by one, names were called. Some prisoners collapsed in terror, others screamed defiance. Most went silently. Then the announcer's voice boomed, Draven. Human. Survivor of Trial 1. Draven stepped forward. The cage door opened with a metallic screech, and a guard shoved him toward the ramp. The pause before his opponent's name was deliberate, designed to heighten the crowd's anticipation. The Warchief Serenia. Gasps rippled through the holding pens. The guards exchanged uncertain glances. Draven's heart pounded once, hard, then steadied. So this had been her plan. This was what all those visits had led to. They were taken separately to the preparation chambers. Draven sat on a stone bench, his breathing slow, ribs pulling with each expansion. When the door opened, Serenia entered in fighting garb. Sleek, minimal, her silver braids now laced with crimson cords. If you kill me, he said without preamble, make it quick. I don't enjoy prolonging death, she replied, voice cool. Then she added, softer, you make a strange request, because for the first time, I don't want to kill you. Before he could answer, guards appeared to summon them to the arena. The sunlight hit like a hammer. Sand stretched before them, stained with old blood. The crowd erupted, their cheers swelling until the air vibrated with it. Weapons were tossed at their feet, crude blades, a short spear, metal-studded gloves. Don't insult me by going easy, Serenia murmured, low enough that only he could hear. Draven picked up a blade, felt its balance, then let it drop into the sand. I don't plan to fight you. Her eyes narrowed. Then die on your knees. The gong sounded. They circled. Dust rose in pale clouds around their feet. The crowd's excitement faltered into murmurs of confusion. Serenia lunged, her blade catching Draven's shoulder. He staggered but did not counterattack. Again she struck, reopening a wound along his ribs. The crowd began to boo, tossing scraps of debris into the arena. She drove her heel into the same rib she had once set, forcing him to his knees. Her blade brushed his throat. You shame me, she hissed. Fight, or die with dignity. Blood trickled from his mouth. You gave me breath. I won't repay that with blood. Kill me if you must, but I won't be your proof. Something flickered in her eyes. She slammed into him, both of them crashing to the sand. The blade at his throat drew a thin red line. The crowd screamed for blood. But instead of finishing him, Serenia turned, and hurled the blade across the arena. It struck the announcer in the throat mid-chant. His voice died in a gurgle as he collapsed. Chaos erupted. The crowd surged toward the exits. Guards rushed the sand. Serenia moved to stand between Draven and their weapons. He is not yours anymore, she roared. The hesitation in the guards lasted only a heartbeat before weapons lifted. Draven moved first, shoving her aside as the first energy bolt scorched the sand where she'd been standing. He came up with a discarded blade in his hand. They fought together. Serenia was raw power, her red skin streaked with blue blood. Draven was precision, every movement economical despite his injuries. The first wave of guards fell. More poured in, elites with pulse rifles. Their commander, a towering figure in ceremonial armor, strode forward. Serenia, he bellowed. Stand down. Come make me, Dravik, she spat, blood in her teeth. Dravik signaled. Weapons fired. They dove for cover, flanking in opposite directions like they'd done it 100 times. Draven slipped behind 2 riflemen and cut them down before they knew he was there. Serenia struck from the other side, shockstaff in hand. A bolt caught her in the thigh. She stumbled, and Dravik leveled his weapon for the killing shot. Draven tackled him, the impact jarring broken ribs. They struggled, armored fists and blades flashing. Serenia recovered and drove a shockstaff into the gap in Dravik's armor. He collapsed, twitching, and the two of them turned to face the next wave together. Back to back in the blood-stained sand, they fought on. The next minutes blurred into a single stretch of blood, sand, and movement. Guards surged in through every arena gate, but each wave faltered when they saw the red-skinned war chief and the human prisoner moving as one. Serenia's blade flashed under the pale sun, cutting down a charging soldier. Draven slid to her flank, intercepting a strike meant for her back. They hardly spoke, they didn't need to. We need the east gate, Serenia gasped between blows. There's a passage. 3 lefts, a right, then down into the waste tunnels, Draven finished for her, his blade sinking into a guard's ribs. Her crimson eyes flicked to him, reassessing. You never planned to die here. I never planned to die anywhere, he said, grim and blood-soaked. They moved together toward the eastern wall, cutting through the last of the hesitant guards. The arena's fire smoke stung Draven's lungs, but it was cover, chaos would hide their escape. They burst through a service hatch, down a narrow corridor, into darkness. The tunnels reeked of rot and rust, but the sound of battle above was already fading. Half a kilometer from the arena, they emerged into the desert night. Draven's side burned with every step, his ribs grinding, blood seeping hot between his fingers. Serenia's leg wound slowed her, her gait uneven. Still, they kept pace together. Behind them, flames licked the sky. Black smoke twisted upward. They're burning the barracks, Serenia said flatly. Erasing everyone who saw what happened. Draven clenched his jaw. The faces of the other prisoners, human and alien, flickered through his mind. This isn't just about us, he said. No. Dravik will hunt us until there's nothing left to hunt. They pressed on, their shadows stretching long across the sand. When Serenia stumbled, Draven caught her, his arm slipping around her waist. She didn't pull away. I could have killed you in the arena, she said after a while. Too late now. He stopped suddenly, tilting his head. A faint hum, mechanical, deliberate, rose on the wind. Drones, he said quietly. They quickened their pace, pushing toward the mountains. By dawn, they reached a vine-draped cave mouth hidden in the foothills. Inside, the air was cool and still. Serenia's skin had gone dull with blood loss. She sank against the wall, wincing. The wound in her thigh had sealed on the surface, but inside it still bled. Draven knelt, examining it with careful hands. You need a compression bandage. We have nothing clean. He untied the strip of cloth still wrapped around his wrist, the one she'd given him in the barracks. Not that, she protested. It's all we have. I'm giving it back. He folded it into a pad, pressed it against her wound, and bound it tight with another scrap from his shirt. You'll live, he said. Her gaze lingered on him. They want me dead because I saw you as a person. And you refused to die properly. You made me choose. And you chose, Draven said. They sat in silence for a while, the wind whispering through the vines. What now? He asked. There are settlements far from here. Places where no one cares what you were, only what you can offer. She hesitated. We could go there. Together. Because you saw me, he said simply. Her hand rose to touch his cheek. And what's that worth in a world like this? Everything. For the first time, she smiled, not the cold mask she'd worn in the arena, but something real, faint, and unguarded. Rest, she said softly. We have a long way to go. He lay back, exhaustion and pain dragging him toward sleep. In the dark, her fingers found his, curling tight. When dawn lit the cave, her eyes were already open, watching him. Cache in the northern slope, he said. Half a day's walk. We'll need supplies. Then that's where we go. She looked at his hand, still holding the key he'd taken from a guard. Keep it. I'm ready for something that opens doors. Her gaze held his for a moment longer. Let's build a world where you don't have to break ribs to be seen. Then we start today, Draven replied. Side by side, they stepped into the desert. Their blood, red and blue, marked the sand in mingling drops. Not an ending, but a beginning. And that's where we leave Draven and Serenia, two fugitives walking into an uncertain dawn, bound by choices that neither can take back. What started in the dust and blood of an arena has become something else entirely, a pact between two warriors who should have been enemies, but instead became each other's reason to keep moving forward. They've traded the roar of the crowd for the silence of the desert, but the danger hasn't passed. The drones will still hunt. Dravik may yet return. The settlements they seek could be myth or reality. But in a world where survival has always meant playing by someone else's rules, the simple act of choosing their own path is a victory worth bleeding for. If this story reached you, if you felt the heat of the sand, the weight of every blow, and the sharp edge of choices made under impossible circumstances, then don't let it end here. I've got more tales waiting for you. Stories of battles fought in shadow, bonds forged in fire, and the strange, dangerous hope that grows in the unlikeliest places. So, before you go, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications so you'll know when the next chapter of this universe drops. Leave a comment, tell me what you'd have done in Draven's place. Would you have fought? Or stood your ground, no blade in hand? And if you think someone else needs to hear this story, share it. Because sometimes, the right story at the right time can be the spark someone's been waiting for. Thanks for walking into the arena with me today. I'll see you in the next fight.